our main program is with the European Union. And we're working very closely with the OSCE and the European Commission in order to support the implementation of national plans of action on combating anti-Semitism in the European Union. We're working also with the USA very much, where we, together with American organizations such as the American Jewish Committee, the American Federation of Teachers, the University of Southern California. We're proposing online courses for teachers. We're doing this work in Canada. We're doing this work in Latin America, et cetera, et cetera. So we're engaged in a number of countries, many countries actually, on a very practical level. At the same time, we're preparing or we're finalizing at the moment an online course. It will be the first of its kind, an online course for teachers and teacher trainers on anti-Semitism. So there will be one resource promoted by UNESCO that will be based at the University College London, where teachers and teacher trainers from all over the world can go and train themselves on anti-Semitism. So that's, I would say, more or less the kind of work that we're doing with, as you understood, very much focused, because this is our mandate, first of all, on formal education, dealing with ministries of education. This is really the added value of UNESCO in that respect. And this is really where we're going. Maybe last point for your information, we're working with civil society organizations, also in particular on the issue of online anti-Semitism. That is a complex problem. And we have a sort of an alliance with a research organization based in London called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, the Bnei the American Jewish Committee, and the World Jewish Congress. And we're working together with civil society organizations, a number of them being actually Jewish community organizations, in order to support civil society professionals and Jewish professionals better address the problem of anti-Semitism, in particular anti-Semitism online. So in addition to the formal systems of education, we also have a whole part of the work that is dedicated to civil society. We've done that work in North America, in Europe, and in Latin America.
That's lots of work, and it's very important. But let me take you to what I think is a complex issue. There has been a recent surge in anti-Semitism in Islamic majority countries. Are any of these projects addressing Islamic countries that UNESCO is running? Because many Islamic and Arab Middle Eastern countries are member states of UNESCO. Any of these projects work there?
So, yes, in fact, in particular, when it comes to Holocaust education, there were expressions of interest throughout the years from some countries, and at the moment we're engaged with some of the countries of the MENA region on dealing with the history of the Holocaust, which of course is related to addressing the question of anti-Semitism. So we actually, not only the MENA region, but we've had also, so just to name them, we are working with the United Arab Emirates at the moment on a project relating to Holocaust and genocide education. We're working with Morocco on the history of the Holocaust and Jewish history in Morocco. We have worked also with Indonesia in the past on Holocaust education, organizing teacher training sessions and publishing also a book on the history of the Holocaust for Indonesian teachers. This is something that we've done a few years back. So yes, we're involved in the Islamic world. I would say that the approach of dealing with anti-Semitism directly may not always be our approach. At the moment, we're engaged in discussions about hate speech, which is of course broader in scope, in which the issue of anti-Semitism naturally comes up. So this is also a way to approach the subject and to develop our outreach strategy, I would say. We have published in the past, and this was very much organized with countries of the Arab region, work on making textbooks more inclusive, and that concerns minority groups, gender issues, etc. So there is some work ongoing on that. If not directly directed towards the specific case of anti-Semitism, directed towards a broader range of issues that may include anti-Semitism. We've just published, and that's interesting, also recommendations on racism in textbooks that naturally touch upon the question of anti-Semitism in order to show also textbooks developers that educational media, and I mean by media, I mean textbooks, curricula, and other pedagogical resources for teachers, are not neutral vectors. And sometimes some, ideologies or I would say stereotypes, etc., are also conveyed into educational media unwittingly. And this is something that we wanted to sort of unveil and provide countries with recommendations on that. In the region that you're mentioning, or I would say broadly speaking, maybe in Islamic countries, there is a lot of work that is being done also with civil society. That's one thing that one should really recognize, acknowledge, and encourage. There is a lot of work done with academics as well. UNESCO may be in some cases engaged on that, but there are a number of organizations, and when dealing with the history of the Holocaust in particular, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum is doing a remarkable work in that respect.
What challenges, if any, do you face when you approach anti-Semitism in the Islamic world? I mean, do you think that the Holocaust education can lead, we are not naming any country here, but in general, does it lead to decrease the anti-Semitic discourse in these countries?
It would be naive to say that. And I would say not only in the countries you're mentioning, but anywhere else. I mean, obviously, Holocaust education is not the only solution to anti-Semitism today. It's part of the solution, but it's also a very good entry point for countries in which, such as in North Africa, for instance, in which the Holocaust took place, where the countries that were occupied by Germany or under Vichy France, for instance. To be sensitized to what happened to Jewish populations during that period, and therefore to understand better, and sometimes it's a bit forgotten, the history of Jews in those countries. There was a rich and very long history. So that can be an entry point. It's never an easy subject. And so I don't want to point the finger to particular countries or particular group of countries. It's almost always difficult to deal with anti-Semitism. And I'm talking here in particular about, European countries, for instance, where you do have, it's the cradle of the genocide, obviously. And it's a priority when it comes to dealing with anti-Semitism, but it's not an easy subject to deal with. You're faced with not necessarily oppositions or objections, but a lot of indifference. People, and that's something we discussed earlier, people do not necessarily realize what is anti-Semitism and what is not. It is also something that is seen as concerning a very, very small portion of the population. People may not realize that this actually has impact on the society as a whole. So there is a lot of advocacy work to be done. So in that respect, it's not easy. But second, once you have convinced people that there is something that should be done, and I'm talking about any country, the question of the how do you do it, in particular in education, remains a mystery for many people, and therefore this is really when we come in, and we try to show solutions of how do you deal with anti-Semitism. And I would say here there are at least 3, 4, 5 different approaches that we promote. One is, first of all, you have to deal with anti-Semitism through education. In other words, make sure that the education system addresses all forms of prejudice for what they are, and that includes anti-Semitism. Education systems must be naturally inclusive,